Okay, so the third and final thing that we might want to be working on as a finishing touch for our biology paper is making sure that we have things really interesting and engaging for our readers. There's two big tools that I want to show you guys real quick in order to help you do that. The first one is kind of something that you don't really associate with something that's more sciencey, which is telling a story. So a couple examples to show you. These are from scientific articles. Um, the sensation James Stanley misses most is the squidgy feeling of wet sand between his toes. Sometimes it's dangling his legs in the cool water, the feeling of soft grass under his feet. And then this goes on. This is from an article that's about spinal cord injuries, but it doesn't start out with statistics about them. Instead, it starts out with a story about someone who suffered from this. You can see here there's basically four parts. First, they're describing the story and giving details of that person. They're also introducing what the topic is going to be that they're talking about. Then they give a transition, but on Tuesday, Mr. Stanley learned there was something there, a faint signal. His spinal cord was capable of sending messages from his lower body to his brain. And then that lets them transition into the final part, which is ultimately going into your main point. So in this case, they say, spinal cord injuries, you may still have surviving nerve connections according to this study. That is their point for this article. That's why they're writing about it. Another great example from a New York Times article, profiling a surgeon. This is a profile, so those of you writing the honors bio assignment might really be benefiting from this. Late one afternoon this summer, Dr. Laura J. Esserman, a breast cancer surgeon at the University of California, sat in a darkened room scrutinizing an MRI. Again, in this particular example, we start out with an interesting story, throwing us into a moment, giving us details. We introduce the person or topic we're going to be covering. Then we use a transition. Most doctors would have said one thing, but she said something different. And then that lets them start talking about why this person's different, what makes them a unique person, which is the topic of that profile. The other example that I want to point out to you as something that you can kind of try in your paper is an analogy. An analogy is where you make a comparison between two things in order to help someone understand. So, for example, you might compare something like memory to something like a computer. A certain type of memory that stores things temporarily might be like the RAM in the computer, where something that's held more long-term might be like the hard drive. You can do this for all sorts of different topics. So if you're talking about infection that spreads through a virus, then you might talk about how it's like that virus hijacks the own cells of your body in order to spread. Using words like that people understand, like a hijacking, is going to make people understand your topic a little bit better. So those are the type of things you can come up with. I'll show you an example in the paper that I've been using as a model. I wrote this here as a introduction, something that we can kind of check out. So normally in my paper, I just started straight into human memory is one of the most essential building blocks of experience. But if I want to make that a little more interesting, I can add this description at the beginning. Imagine entering the later years of your life and slowly beginning to realize that your early years are vanishing. A variety of conditions cause a loss of memory, etc. So again, what I'm doing here is using that description where I'm showing, okay, this is a more interesting detail, a story, something that could happen to someone. In this case, it's hypothetical. It's not a specific example, but it still works. I'm introducing the topic itself, conditions that cause a loss of memory. And then only after that do I transition into what I'm going to be talking about, what my main point is. So these are the types of things that you need to be adding to your paper. I would say every single person, whether you're doing the CP bio assignment or the honors bio assignment, should try to have an attention-grabbing hook. Even though this is just informational, even though a lot of what we're doing in here is just facts, we still can use stories, can use comparisons, can use analogies to make sure that people understand it, because stories help us think, they help us process things, and they give us a connection that we can use as we're writing our paper. As always, if you have questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to help.